Thank you, Dr. Chan Dang Vu and the organizing committee for your tremendous leadership and for bringing us together today for this Black April Memorial. 45 years ago, the city of Saigon fell, and along with it, the hopes of Vietnamese, Americans, and allies who had endured over 20 years of fighting a cruel communist insurgency financed by China and the Soviet Union. Over 500,000 South Vietnamese died fighting for their freedom, along with over 58,000 Americans, almost 1,500 from my home state of New Jersey, including my next-door neighbor. After Saigon fell, Communist Vietnam began fulfilling its dystopian vision for the country, locking up hundreds of thousands of innocent South Vietnamese in so-called re-education camps. That set the tone for the next 45 years. But today's tyranny by the government of Vietnam need not and must not be forever. Today, Vietnam has one of the worst human rights records in the world, with credible reports of extrajudicial killings, torture, and arbitrary detention. There is no free media, no freedom of religion. We estimate that in Vietnam today, there are about 120 prisoners of conscience jailed for their political or religious beliefs. Consider the brave blogger Trong Du Nhiet, whom a corrupt Vietnamese court sentenced to 10 years in jail in March, ironically for alleged corruption. His case is especially disturbing since Vietnam apparently abducted him from Thailand so that they could lock him up. His great crime was simply telling the truth about Vietnam. Throughout my tenure in Congress, I have chaired more than a dozen hearings on human rights, religious freedom, and democracy in Vietnam, authored 5 House-passed bills and 3 House-passed resolutions, amendments to ensure that no U.S. funds could be used to forcibly repatriate boat people back to Vietnam, and I've traveled to Vietnam several times on human rights missions. Joined by my colleagues Zoe Lofgren and Alan Lowenthal, I have again reintroduced the Vietnam Human Rights Act, H.R. 1383, to make it U.S. policy to assess and sanction Vietnamese officials and others complicit in gross violations of internationally recognized human rights or particularly severe violations of religious freedom. The House of Representatives has passed my bipartisan Vietnam Human Rights Act 5 times in 2001, 2004, 2007, 2012, and again in 2013. It has been blocked ever since. So I urgently request that you ask the House leadership and the chairman and ranking member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee to approve the Vietnam Human Rights Act, H.R. 1383, and approve it now. Remind them that while we would like to see better trade and security relations with the Vietnamese people, we need to remember that governments that brutally assault the fundamental human rights of their own people are unlikely to become trustworthy allies. Thus, as the Vietnamese government seeks to expand trade and security relations with the United States, we must link tangible human rights improvements to better relations, including by seeking the release of all prisoners of conscience. As we all cope with the COVID-19 pandemic, it is particularly important that these prisoners be released on humanitarian grounds. Doing so would be one small step toward a Vietnam where the rights of all of its citizens are respected. Thank you.